interesting episode of Inside Out. Today we're talking about something that I think should concern all of us as Nigerians. It affects our future generation. We need to understand the issue of child marriage. Is it really child marriage? Should we call it rape? Should we call people like that pedophiles?
Let me first say very clearly,
yes,
that I have a quarrel with the terminology child marriage. It does not happen. It can't happen. A child cannot marry. Because by virtue, by virtue of the definition of marriage under our law, and when you take the child,
what do we call it? When an elderly
because
person marries somebody,
we can call it perpetual rape. We can call it domestic rape. We can call it. You see, let me explain to you why I'm saying that. Let me explain to you why I'm saying that. In marriage, there are two factors that you cannot wish away in marriage. There's what is called capacity. That is, does this person who is to contract a marriage, does the person have capacity? That's number one. The number two is consent. Does this person who is going to go into a marriage have consent? Now, note, even when you are above 18 and you want to go into a marriage, it means you have capacity. Now, if you have capacity, does that mean you can just be married without your will? You see, we need to work on that terminology, child marriage. It does not exist. A child cannot marry.
Okay, Doc, before I talk to the other two young men, Doc, let me talk to you. What is wrong with medically with taking a child?
Now, if you look at life we live, it's a process. It begins with conception. Can you do anything at conception? No. That means it's a developmental journey we are undertaking. When you have a child below 1, there are certain things it could accommodate. If it moves on to like 5, another stage. And it's assumed that you have not developed the cognitive capacity to handle situations until you get to 12 years, when we say you can reason abstractly. Now, when you go into adolescence,
you can't reason abstractly
until you get to 12. Exactly. That means if you can't reason abstractly, like between 7 and 11, it's assumed you can reason concretely based on the things you see. Okay? And that is the basis for what? Training. Because of your mental capacity. Now, I'm going to tell you about the psychological implication of what we're doing to these children. It's like mental torture. Okay? Emotional deprivation.
Yes.
Okay? And when you subject these children to all this kind of torture, when they grow up, it comes back to haunt the society.
Yes. Tell me, what is it you do? And what are you advocating for?
I'll try to deal with the two words here, the child and the marriage. I'd like to define the child and define marriage. Child is defined as a minor. A minor is someone who needs the protection of law, society, tradition, and religion. And that is who a child is. And the law says that a child is not allowed to vote, neither is a child allowed to get into any form of contract. And marriage, for all we know, is the most critical and life-threatening contract any sane individual can walk into. So if a child is not allowed to vote, why would you allow that child to get into marriage?
This is a serious matter. Daniel, this is something that you said you just worked on. I would like to hear your thoughts on this issue.
Thank you. Child marriage, as it is, that all my elders here have said, a child is a person that's below the age of 18. And according to the child rights law, there are 4 basic rights of the child. The right to survival, participation, development, and survival. Now, a child going into marriage as it is a violation of these 4 rights. 1, on survival. When you get a child into marriage in Africa, you know, Africa, we are very traditional. We take tradition very serious, which I know. And in marriage, one thing after marriage is pregnancy, which you all agree on. When a child gets pregnant with a child, and a child is having a child, how will a child cater for another child? No, you need to be real. Now, a child going into marriage doesn't know what she's going into for. She just knows that she's going to live with someone else, and that is how life is going to be. It can be very traumatic. So when this child in question has another child, which he just gave birth to, now the child is not fully developed to have a child. With their pelvic rib is not
In fact,
enough.
I'm getting very confused
It's
with the
not
amount of
enough.
children in the story.
Is not enough. They are not matured enough to have a child.
Yeah.
Most of them die at childbirth, which is a complete violation of the right to survival. Thereby, you eliminate the child completely. So, child marriage is like a criminal offense to me. That was what we discussed.
It's actually child marriage by virtue of the Child Rights Act 2003, which has been passed in Lagos State in 2007 and 23 other states. Child marriage is defined as an offense. Now, betrothal of children, marrying of children is an offense. Now, this is the issue. The issue is, I think the issue is not about chemistry. Pedophilia is a sickness. Anybody who is attracted, anybody who says, because if you look at a pedophile who raped a 3-year-old girl, and they asked him, why did you rape the girl? Look at this woman, what he said. He said one day the mother was carrying the child when the child was 2 years old. So breeze blew, I saw the diaper. He said, since that day, I became attracted. Now, he said, so I stalked the girl for 1 year, and finally, I got her.
Now, it's like becoming a vicious circle of events and situations. Now, let me give you this excerpt. You ask yourself, who determines what norms pervade in any environment? That is where I'm going, so that because I have looked at it critically over and over. If you go to the Roman Empire time, they were the elites. If you don't belong to a certain group, you cannot determine what a standard is. Those standards is what spreads, and all of us what? Imbibe it. It becomes the norm, whether good or bad. And at that point, in our statistical definition of abnormality, okay, if it does not fall between the average, okay, it is abnormal. That means if it goes to the extreme right, whether it's positive or not, it's abnormal. If it goes to the negative, it becomes what? Abnormal.
The Child Rights Act is clear as to what we call child marriage, which is a major problem for me as to whether there's anything called child marriage, because it's rape. Is that you keep a child against his or her will. It is that's why Wasila had poisoned the husband.
Yes.
That's why an 18-year a girl was 14, pregnant, 8 months pregnancy, set herself on fire. Now the question is, that is perpetual problem. Now, if you get married, if you talk about marriage, in marriage, that's what is called consummation of marriage. Now, consummation of marriage means a man and a woman who are married must have sex. They will say, have you consummated the marriage? Now, if by law, a child does not have capacity to even give consent to marriage, then he does not have capacity to even give consent to sex, how then do you keep the child in the house? And that is continual, consistent rape on daily basis, which is a destruction of childhood. Now, that takes away joy, which is foundational attribute of a child. That takes away peace. That takes away curiousness. That takes away innocence. That takes away fearlessness.
You are taking a 10-year-old girl to go into marriage. What does that child know about marriage? I want to look at it this way. Remember, we're talking about personality development. All of us know what adolescent is. Sexually, this child is not matured yet. Now, though we are having precocious children who can take in at 9, 10, but that does not bestow them with that sense of maturity to know the right and the wrong decision to take, because cognitive-wise, they have not developed to that level. But physically, yes, but not fully what? Developed. From 15 to 18, I don't want to go through the process. I just want to give you from 15 to 18, that is when the crisis of what? Gender identity primes. Now, this person you are talking about does not even know whether he's a woman or not fully, other than the physical attributes. It's from 15 to 18 he begins to internalize the roles of women and the womanhood concept. And before this age, you have contracted this person to what? Marriage. What kind of marriage is that? Well, like my colleague has said, I don't think there is anything like child marriage. It's an enslavement to me.
It's an enslavement.
And it must be actually dealt with so that the society will come back to their what? Moral conscience again.
I think that some men just naturally has this urge for sex. Some people cannot control themselves. Some men, if they walk on the road, if they just see a little girl, you know, there are some face me, I face you houses that maybe the parents wants to bath the children and they'll come outside. They will not just, if they just see the nakedness of that female, their body will rise. They'll just feel like having sex. So I think some men naturally has this urge for sex.
Doc, is there a condition like that?
Sickness.
Is there sickness?
You said if there's something like that, yes,
Yes.
there
Yes,
is.
many years.
Like,
You know what fascinates me with cases like this is the fact that you see the person and the person looks normal.
Yes.
He has children.
Yes.
Well,
He
educated.
has a wife.
Yes.
You
Well
know, things
educated.
like that. And then
Yes.
he's a pedophilia.
Yes.
He's a pedophile.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
like you have it in both males and females. People with excessive sexual urge. In females, they are called nymphomania. In males, they are called satyriasis. So
I've never heard the male one. Please tell me. I know about
satyriasis.
No, I know nymphomania is for females.
Yeah, satyriasis.
Satyriasis.
Yes.
Never
That-
heard it.
Yeah, that is the name for males that cannot satisfy their sexual urges. So they keep going.
The question that I have is, this pedophilia of a thing, can it be inherited?
Can it be inherited?
We might not say it because there's no gene that have been isolated for that. But the point is like it can be transferred from a son to from a
Yes,
father
it's-
to a son. If you keep observing it, to you it might be the only way.
My comment is this: I believe when there is no law, there is no sin. Bringing up a very hard law, and I'm not talking about an ordinary law, I'm talking about a law that will be enforced, can actually help nip this issue of child marriage or child rape. Nip it in the bud.
The law kill it, but the spirit gives life. The letter, the law, kill
Okay.
it, but the spirit gives life. I feel to end or to reduce this child marriage, we need 3 strategies, which is to cure, to celebrate, and then to cancel.
I'll look at it from the consequences of this, in quote, child marriage to the girl child. One, let's look at the mental health implication. Studies have shown us that children who are taken into marriage very early come down with depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder. Apart from that, they suffer from problem of esteem. They always have low self-esteem and isolation. Now, if they have all this, what future do they have? Okay? So I don't think it's an option. Let us kill child marriage with a big hammer.
I'd like to say that don't leave the children in the dark, because there are lots of people fighting against child marriage, but the children themselves don't know what child marriage is. Just like you are fighting for the child, but the child is still in the dark. They don't know what that thing is. Let them be aware that this thing is against everything that you stand for. Let them see the light there.
For me, change is an ever-present possibility for any human being who's ready to take responsibility. And that is why I must salute you for taking on this course, because when we think about change a lot of times, you might think about what can we do? When you think about change a lot of time, you think about the world. We must therefore arise in our own area of influence and begin to fight for the eradication of this evil called child molestation, otherwise known as child marriage.
You know, it's okay here to be hailing and be all wired up, but everything he has said is serious. That if, you know, we're so quick to point at other people and not realize that we have a role to play. And I hope that that is the one thing that we go away with here. And to my wonderful audience, you guys at the bomb. Until next talking about something else equally as interesting, Bye-bye and see you next week.